Our story begins on the battlefield, and with the skeleton's body being covered with dark energy, the ordinary knights start screaming for everyone to run to save their lives, because a huge silhouette appeared on the battlefield and covered all the skeletons with its dark energy. It's the demon of Taros. It's an insanely scary monster with chains on its arms and scary faces. At this second, a mysterious guy in dark robes appears and laughs evilly. It's the champion of the Allied forces, Han Ji-hyuk. Ji-hyuk laughs, saying that it was worth all the trouble making that. Behind him is an old man who is clearly intimidated by him. The old man turns to Ji-hyuk, asking why every time they fight Ji-hyuk calls him along. And he is an archmage, a summoner. Ji-hyuk responds with an angry face, reminding him that he is the one who summoned him, and that it's fair enough if he fights on his side. The archmage tries to ask him to let him go, but Ji-hyuk, with an angry face, says that if he throws someone into the thick of things, the archmage will have to take responsibility even if he does. Ji-hyuk himself has been teleported here from the comfort of his home with plenty of cheap dopamine, and now he's been forced to fight on the battlefield for 30 years. Ji-hyuk didn't even have time to understand him, the so-called great cause of the Allied forces to him. Those enemies and all of you are no different. Even so, the only reason Ji-hyuk helping him is because it's the fastest way for him to get back to Earth. So, stop nagging and behave, okay, Archimage? Then Ji-hyuk, the Necromancer's pet, lets out a roar and scares everyone around him. Ji-hyuk finds the Demon King among the rubble, at which point the Archimage smilingly congratulates Ji-hyuk for defeating the Demon King himself. Ji-hyuk didn't like that the end was really so close. Ji-hyuk started to get angry, cursing the Demon King as he prepared 4 more ultimatum weapons against him. Ji-hyuk smiled and turned to the Archmage, asking him if it was time to keep his promise. Now, amongst the mountains of gold, Ji-hyuk smiled and enjoyed the new shiny, little beautiful things. Ji-hyuk smiled and began to bathe in the gold coins, saying that one day he would return to Earth and finally be able to live and enjoy his life in peace, just relaxing and having fun. At this point, the Archmage beckons Ji-hyuk over, saying that everything is already ready for him to go to Earth. Ji-hyuk finally says goodbye to the Archimagus with a wave of his hand, saying that he realizes that if he stays, the Archimagus won't be very happy about it. The Archimage tries to say something, but Ji-hyuk silently walks over to him and says that he doesn't need any more small talk. Ji-hyuk demands a well-deserved vacation to Earth. Finally, this manga crystal twisted causality, allowing Ji-hyuk to remain in this world. Also thanks to this stone freezing Ji-hyuk's timeline, he hasn't even aged in the last 30 years of harsh war. The Archimage also tells Ji-hyuk that once this crystal is shattered, the causality will reverse, and he will return to the exact moment he was brought here. So the Archimage says a lot of complicated things. Ji-hyuk finally touches the crystal, asking if he really got this whole causality thing. But this is all he needs to do, right? The Archmage states that, yes, he is already at his limit. And also, he needs to resist some kind of reversal of causality. He needs to accept it. Then Ji-hyuk smiles and then swings his blade. And so, Ji-hyuk's eyes went dark. And in a moment he opened his eyes as wide as he could and smiled widely, shouting that he was finally back. Woohoo! After a while, Ji-hyuk was already eating chips and imagining getting himself some kimchi and fried rice and kimchi stew. And after that, Ji-hyuk thought about it and then sighed heavily, saying that he had gotten nothing, but now he had time and money, so he would try different things that he couldn't before. Finally, Ji-hyuk decided to check the things he had brought with him. He opened his pocket vault and tried to take out an item, but feeling nothing, he decided to look into it completely. Ji-hyuk's joy of complete freedom was interrupted in an instant. He fell silent. All his gold bars, treasures, his immortal army and savings fund. Where the hell did Ji-hyuk end up? He ended up in some place called Saron. Ji-hyuk appeared in the middle of the square, accompanied by a violet bright energy. Ji-hyuk couldn't figure out where he was, so he looked around to get an idea of where he was. Ji-hyuk was here suddenly, so he asked what this place was, and was told that it was the continent of Saron. Ji-hyuk couldn't understand where the hell he was, and what the hell was this nonsense. Already in Ji-hyuk's private office, the familiar Archimagus questioned Ji-hyuk about what he had just said. Ji-hyuk couldn't understand why the hell he was sitting in that office doing nothing. After all the hardship he went through, the way the still young Archimagus saved young Ji-hyuk with his shield, the way Ji-hyuk put up with the locals. Even the Archimagus had already aged. And he, having waited so long for the day of his return to Earth, remembering his friend, he doesn't understand why he could do this to him. Ji-hyuk abruptly jumps up and yells that he can't leave retirement like that. Remembering Theros, he calls him a dumbass. At one point, Ji-hyuk feels a flow of mana, but he doubts it because he is on the ground. Meanwhile, a rift in space opens up somewhere on Earth. And while everyone is running away from the rift, Ji-hyuk runs towards it. Ji-hyuk looks up at the sky and sees limitless chaos. Why the hell is something like this happening on Earth? Ji-hyuk calls and asks him why the hell he sent him to this planet. Ji-hyuk realizes that he has to get out of here before something that could cause trouble happens. At that moment, Ji-hyuk sees a child who is under attack by one of the monsters. He is resigned to his fate, but Ji-hyuk gathers all the mana in his hand and prepares to attack the monster. At that moment, a loud voice asks the inhabitants to disperse, and the hunter who has appeared abruptly rescues the child. The knight asks if the child is all right, to which the child replies positively. The child begins to run away from the battlefield, and everyone around them abruptly begins to panic. The knights continue to fight on the battlefield, destroying monsters with different types of weapons. Ji-hyuk looks at these people and wonders what people with such power are on Earth. Ji-hyuk is also asked to be careful by one of the hunters, who at the same time shoots a fire beam at the monster behind Ji-hyuk, causing him to laugh nervously and remember the archimage from the past world asking him, "Where the hell did you send it?" After a while, Ji-hyuk sits in his room with his computer and silently reads the news for a long time. After a few days of searching the internet, he confirms that this place is the land he knows, the difference being that now there are gates, monsters, and the awakened. Since gates started appearing on Earth, some people began developing unusual abilities. They call them awakened. Before he left Seron, Teros was rambling about causality or something. But what matters most now is that his luxurious retirement plans have been completely ruined. At his age, do he really have to worry about making a living? Ji-hyuk realized that if he registered as an awakened, he could hunt monsters near the gate and make money quickly. But he doesn't want to do that. He can use magic and make the skeletons do what he wants. But there's another problem. This is really the best method, even though he would like to see how people react to the undead. A few hours later, several scientists were looking at the undead that Ji-hyuk had summoned and marveling at his skills. After the scientist picked up a bat to test the skeleton's skill level in combat, and then the scientist took off the skeleton's head with a light blow. The skeleton's head really rolled away, and the scientist began to marvel that this skeleton was so damn weak. The scientist decided to meet in the conversation room, but then Ji-hyuk used a special skin to find out what they were saying in the room. It's something new and interesting, but very weak. That's what Ji-hyuk finds out, for which rightly, according to the scientists, he gets a level F rank. Yes, now Han Ji-hyuk has a rank of F. He realized that now is the time to make some money, and so Ji-hyuk headed out into the streets in search of new adventures. Most necromancers use their mana to empower the undead, giving them new abilities to move. But human strength is limited, so this method limits the amount of undead controlled by the necromancer. But there was still another method. It was with this method that Ji-hyuk arrived here and had already taken the huge green goblin by surprise. Seeing the goblin's ability to spit acid surprised Ji-hyuk quite a bit, so he decided to change his strategy and began to build up complex attack algorithms for his undead and their strategy. These magic circles Ji-hyuk called macro system. Simply put, he pre-programmed algorithms into the undead, so they can respond automatically in specific situations, following preset commands. Well, that's basically how it works. This way he don't have to control them manually, and he can summon as many units as he wants. Ji-hyuk can't believe he's back at it. But this method is very similar to computer programming. There were a lot of bugs, so the system wasn't perfect. But thanks to the content he had in the Seron world, he customized his macros perfectly because it lasted 30 les. If he had those, he wouldn't have to deal with this mess. Yeah, it's his best investment of time ever. Thanks to Ji-hyuk's algorithm of actions, the skeletons easily dismantled the boss in the dungeon, and he finally went into his phone, decided to see his results because he has been hunting for quite some time. Time to go back. After a while, in the middle of the location where they gather appeared Ji-hyuk, who coolly came out of the portal, making his undead drag goblins. He was met by a big guy with a palm tree on his head who smiled at him. The big guy was obviously happy that he was here too, because he had gotten a lot of loot again today. Ji-hyuk smiled and was surprised that they weren't even checking the loot, so he asked them to do a quick count. The skeletons at this time loaded the loot into a special truck. After all the deductions, the total amount of his transfer was 2.0000.000 KRW, to which Ji-hyuk smilingly asked him to transfer it to his account. Ji-hyuk got the money right away, and after saying goodbye to the palm head, he finally started to leave. Ji-hyuk realized that this is better than getting a high rank and drawing too much attention. Ji-hyuk realized that he just needed to survive. At first he fine-tuned his macros, he will be fine. At this time, Ji-hyuk began to hear other hunters, who were obviously not happy with his success, because Ji-hyuk had received too many rewards. Yes, the hunters wanted to do the same, so they wanted to take him as a team. But alas, summoners don't usually team up, because they supposedly can't synchronize with the team. Ji-hyuk approached the knights, and they immediately apologized for speaking so loudly. Ji-hyuk smilingly began to shake his hand, saying that there was no mistake. Were they really looking for a porter? Actually, the knights said that they were really looking for such a person. Ji-hyuk clapped his hands and then asked if they could try a brand new porter in that case. As part of his grand opening event, he'll offer it to absolutely free. It's Ji-hyuk's business idea. It's absolutely brilliant. All the corpses that fell in the dungeons, thanks to the knights who cut off their heads. Ji-hyuk gave those knights a wonderful item that can withstand much more than they expected. This is the Skeleton Porter MK2. It's a product designed to use skeletons as porters, though it still needs a lot of refinement. And yes, apparently, a lot of adventurers found it quite useful. So the cunning Ji-hyuk has already offered them to use it for only 30,000 won per hour, which would be about 3 people of the porter's rank. Of course, this offer seems to be quite useful to the awakened ones, and Ji-hyuk further fuels their interest by saying that he has a special discount for them. And so, after a while, Ji-hyuk is no longer an awakened man, but a businessman quietly sipping coffee in a corner under an umbrella. Nearby is a tent with a huge number of his own MK2s. They are served by a beautiful girl who at the same time is still unknown to us. But wait, who is this girl out of the blue? To understand this, we need to go back in time, where it all started with the day Ji-hyuk roaming the gate to perfect the Skeleton Porter MK2's macro system. But at one point he smelled a strange odor in the middle of the dungeon, where it turned out to be a dead man. All of Ji-hyuk's undead started to look at it fearfully, but Ji-hyuk decided to ignore it and just asked his undead to move on. But after walking a little further, he was forced to turn around, sighing he still didn't understand why he couldn't keep his nose out of other people's business. Still, Ji-hyuk needed another member of the team, so he started using his system to tame him. Ji-hyuk began to see her past, where it appeared that she wanted to help her family when she was awakened, but she was eventually thrown off the team after being critically injured. Ji-hyuk, finally finishing using his system, was angered by this, because it's disappointing when people can be betrayed by such a bunch of garbage, which is why Ji-hyuk was happy to work with Hanseoa. She's now a zombie assistant who just learned her name. That's how she became Ji-hyuk's assistant. Anyway, Ji-hyuk's business has literally exploded, and now he has the perfect part-timer. Money is easy to make, but the only problem is the question, who the hell killed his favorite assistant then? At one point, Ji-hyuk abruptly got up from his chair and put his coffee on his assistant's desk and said that he would be back soon. He just needed to use the restroom. At this time, a nearby company of porters were frustrated that no one was hiring them after MK2's appearances. They decided to move on to the next gate, but this one is the closest. Then he wanted to make a special request. Namely, he wanted to limit the supply of MK2s so they could get work. Even if they moved to another gate, it wouldn't solve the problem. They still have stock, even after lending everything at this time. That means they could soon expand to other nearby gates. But how long will they wait for their destiny? They need a job right away. At that moment, a certain Kim Young-gi calls out to them from behind, saying that the kid is making some sense for once. They talk about Ji-hyuk and the fact that he only has an F rank. He uses all his undead as porters. That's not how he can make money. One of their team members was mad surprised that this kid was going to mess with Ji-hyuk, but no. He's not dumb enough to fight an awakened man, no matter how weak he is. But Kim has a cunning plan. He'll have his awakened friends behind him. So Kim convinces this group of misfits to just follow him. The girl in their company thinks it's a good offer, and the other guy in their team thinks it's unfair that he has to work for 10,000 won an hour to make a living. But he wants to solve everything without negativity and stressing the situation. The bespectacled guy in the company also says that there's no guarantee that it will work, so he's going to give Kim a chance. Kim keeps stressing the situation by asking what else they should do, because all his friends are on their way. So they are about to start talking. Anyway, Kim suggests him to change his mind and join them, because his power is something that can at least be used. The smart dude realizes that it's not a good idea, and he's going to warn Ji-hyuk in a secret way. Meanwhile, there's a sound in the men's restroom, and after a moment behind this dude, Ji-hyuk appears and asks, "Are you trying to warn me?" Ji-hyuk really likes having someone on his side. Yeah, Ji-hyuk heard everything. He also hates it when people try to trap him and take him by surprise. He was going to wreck everything. Ji-hyuk points his finger at the guy and says what he said was pretty cute, so he's going to think it over. Ji-hyuk offers to work part-time for him. He's been meaning to expand his business anyway, and he pays him generously, so here's the good deal. Of course, the guy was happy because this way all the other porters would return. Ji-hyuk understood this too because it was the best plan. But the other porters were going to crush him, weren't they? Of course, the guy was amazed by this. He tried to change Ji-hyuk's mind by saying that they had a reason because they didn't have money, but Ji-hyuk didn't understand. He didn't remember that he didn't have money. Ji-hyuk is going to give it a shot just because of this kind dude, but he needs to keep the terms they discussed a secret and try to persuade them. Of course, the guy agrees. Finally, Kim brought everyone in, and the bespectacled guy was finally able to look at his awakened saviors too. Jong-hyuk and his friends were also there. Kim turned to his friends, introducing Jong-hyuk as the one they'd use to take down that F-ranked fool easily. Jong-hyuk finally started to save time, saying that today they were going to make a deal with that guy. By the way, Jong-hyuk tried using that skeleton too. It's super convenient and cheap. It makes you wonder why people even hire real porters. But the situation's a bit different. Jong-hyuk asked him to look at something. Jong-hyuk was unhappy that Ji-hyuk was making a lot of money, and that's why Jong-hyuk was going to stand up for the porters. Jong-hyuk smiled wryly and said that now they would discuss their plan where the regular porters would provoke Ji-hyuk, and the heroes themselves would come to his defense and draw the public's attention to the fact that he was attacking people. Kim was perfectly happy with the plan, saying he would be exposed as the aggressor, saying there was only one end in sight for Kim. Jong-hyuk did say that after that his commission would be raised from 15 to 25%, which made Kim ask him to wait, since that wasn't part of their deal anymore. Jong-hyuk did start to stress Kim out, asking if Kim thought he was such an idiot for trying to punish an awakened man for free. Does Kim really want to lose her entire job or just give 25% of her income to him? It's your choice, Kim. Kim immediately shut up and asked Jong-hyuk to take action. Then Jong-hyuk slapped his friend on the shoulder and said he made a good choice, and then walked off into the sunset with a smile on his face. Kim returned to his companions, shaking with anger, and the companions were outraged that Kim had agreed to a 25% commission. How the hell were they supposed to survive? Kim asked them to shut up. It wasn't his fault, it was Ji-hyuk's, and if he wasn't here, they wouldn't even have to ask these assholes to help them. Ji-hyuk suggested that they get the hell out of here, but good luck on their way. It was too damn dangerous. At that moment, a smart dude shows up and tells everyone to calm down, saying that their way is wrong and it's not the way out. Then Kim started to get mad at the smart dude, asking why the hell he was here again. But the guy said he saw everything and had already met him personally before. But Kim thought it was a betrayal, to which the smart dude tried to change his mind. The smart dude explained that he had only met him in an open conversation, which then forced them to find a way to work things out. The dude started to explain that there must be a way for them to work together even with summons. It's too much for one person to handle. But Kim wasn't happy with that solution. He thought it was pathetic. Why the hell should they trust an unknown person who took their job? But the smart dude tried to explain to him that he didn't talk to him much, but he clearly isn't a bad person. The smart dude started asking them to trust him since they definitely know their friend Chan-su. Of course, everyone could trust Chan-su. He's one of the people they couldn't make money without. This made Kim start to get even angrier and ask everyone to get a grip. After all, they need to protect their own honor and pride. But still Chan-su's friends were willing to trust him, to which Kim was outraged because they had decided to back down. But Kim promised that by leaving, they would doom themselves to no work in the future. Kim and Seo strolled down the street, where he was already picking out a delicious dinner, and Seo was imagining delicious meat in her head. Suddenly, Ji-hyuk's path is blocked by Kim. Ji-hyuk is finally glad that it's the same porters who will try to catch him. Kim resents Chan-soo for telling him everything, but Ji-hyuk says he didn't tell him anything. All he did was ask him for a favor, so he offered him a part-time job. The other porters were shocked to hear that they would get real jobs, but Ji-hyuk said that only those who followed Chan-soo would get jobs, and Ji-hyuk was only going to play with them for a while. Ji-hyuk creates a magic circle and then abruptly releases chains all over the battlefield and says that everyone who is hiding should stop doing so now. He abruptly pulls some assholes out from behind the bushes, and Jong-hyuk finally starts to realize what they are doing. Ji-hyuk looks coldly at Jong-hyuk, saying that he knows all about him. He'll recognize Jong-hyuk. "You're the enemy of my employee, aren't you?" Behind him stood the cute Chan-soo, and Ji-hyuk claimed that he was going to start looking for him already, but was too lazy. How lucky Ji-hyuk is. That really surprises Jong-hyuk, and Ji-hyuk clenches his hands and covers himself with an aura, saying that now they'll start having fun, won't they? Ji-hyuk starts squeezing Jong-hyuk's chains as hard as possible, saying that this will happen when someone gets in the way of him doing his job. "Hey, look at your face. Isn't that a cool vibe, isn't it?" Ji-hyuk starts throwing Jong-hyuk from side to side, saying that he's gone too far, and Jong-hyuk will make sure he never even thinks about interfering with him again. Ji-hyuk calls his friends, and finally, the game begins. The skeletons began to creepily touch the monster's face. Chan-soo looked at the suffering Jong-hyuk, and Ji-hyuk was now convinced that revenge had been accomplished. Success. Ji-hyuk gave those bastards who tried him to harm a proper scare with undead enhanced by illusion magic, and as a bonus, he even fixed their shabby appearances out of kindness. He could say it was a perfectly peaceful resolution. After a while, the carriers were already thanking Ji-hyuk, especially our smart guy who had successfully saved his friends. But the smart guy couldn't understand what Ji-hyuk had done to those guys, so Ji-hyuk started to remember, and then he said that he had warned them in a friendly way not to do that ever again. Anyway, they move on the main topic. The hourly rate Ji-hyuk offering is slightly lower, at 25,000 KRW, but let Ji-hyuk clear about thing he'll never run out of work again. But why? Because now there's Ji-hyuk's new invention, the state-of-the-art six-legged transport skeleton, MK.4. The other transporters couldn't figure out what the hell it was, and so events are being moved to the city, where more experienced hunters were discussing the transport skeletons in the next town are supposed to be amazing. Everyone's flocking there because of how convenient they are. Everyone was in anticipation until the sound of the skeleton was heard, where they turned around and saw a familiar transport with a girl with big eyes. The girl offers the hunters a look at the carrier. Their team consists of him, the team leader, and 2 transport skeletons. The price is 120,000 KRW per hour. They never heard of people being part of the deal. The Awakened didn't understand. Can't they just rent skeletons? Alas, they are at least part of the deal. Now, the Awakened didn't understand. Should they pay for one extra person? It's not expensive. Why not give it a try for the experience? Are they really that greedy? Yes, they decided to give it a try. So the girl kept shining her smile and thanking them for making the deal. Then a time skip happens where the heroes find themselves in a dungeon, where she successfully did her job and quickly collected loot in a skeleton, saving a lot of time for the other Awakened, which in the end everyone thought was a pretty useful feature. An Awakened even declared that she was great, giving her a thumbs up. Now the Awakened were eager to try it out again. Meanwhile, Ji-hyuk and his zombie assistant stood in their new apartment, began dominating the lowest levels of the monster byproduct industry. The skeletons began dominating the lowest levels of the monster byproduct industry. Still, something Ji-hyuk didn't like. He examined his skeletons. Thinking back to how undead were looked down upon in Saron, just thinking about it, Ji-hyuk makes angry. Anyway, Ji-hyuk has been hesitant about increasing the number of porters until now, since it's not for combat people seems surprisingly okay with it. But honestly, Ji-hyuk doesn't like to mass-produce these and rake in the money, but that would inevitably draw attention, and if that happens, his peaceful retirement life would be over. Still, summoners can only summon 10 creatures, which is what he expected. If he adds some more summoned creatures, he will attract a lot of attention. Suddenly, he hears a strange sound from the zombie assistant's phone, and then Ji-hyuk leaves a little surprise on the girl's head. "What is it that you're watching? Idol videos? Really?" Ji-hyuk starts looking at his phone, realizing that these idols make tons of money just from straight work. and he just wants to make money easily and quietly and enjoy the comfort. Jihawk bought something and then told the man that he was going to increase the number of monster bones he can buy. Jihawk also made a huge purchase, which we will learn about in the next part. Good luck, everyone.